One of the amendments proposed by the Labour MP, the opposition MP Yvette Cooper, would try to force the government to postpone Brexit Day until the end of the year, if agreement on Mrs May's deal cannot be reached by late February. And one of the Labour MPs who has backed it is Stephen Kinnock, who is in our Westminster studio. Good evening to you.
Hello, good evening.
What is the purpose of Yvette Cooper's bill or amendment?
Well, the primary purpose is to take no deal off the table, in the sense that we would not be able to crash out of the EU on the 29th of March because Yvette Cooper has put down a piece of primary legislation which, if we vote it through by activating the amendment on Tuesday when we vote, it will force the government to seek an extension to Article 50 if Parliament has not been able to find a way through this and agree an alternative deal. So it is actually binding the hands of government, which is absolutely the right thing to do, because leaving the EU with no deal would be a disaster for the British economy.
But you'll be aware that there are concerns about what is happening here. Let me just read you what Sir Stephen Law, the former Parliamentary Counsel, said about this. Parliament is ill-equipped to perform the functions of government. It is not held democratically accountable in the same way government can be. What would you say to that?
I would frankly say that government isn't able to fulfil the functions of government at the moment. I mean, Theresa May just had her flagship piece of legislation crushed by 230 votes in Parliament. So we are in the process of rewiring the British Constitution. The reason we're doing it is because Theresa May has tried to bully and intimidate Parliament. She's never really woken up to the fact that because of her poor performance in the 2017 general election, she's ended up in a hung Parliament, and she should have been reaching out across the party political divides to form a consensus for the type of Brexit that Parliament could support. She's failed to do that, and now we have to take matters into our own hands.
Mr. Kinnock, one of the confusing things about Brexit, perhaps one of the many confusing things, for people particularly watching from around the world, is that there is no clear party in the UK in favour of staying in the European Union. Is the Labour leadership now moving incrementally in that direction?
I think there are deep reservations about having a second referendum, which I also hold. For 2 years, I've been advocating that we should leave the European Union and take what's sometimes called the Norway option. We're calling it Common Market 2.0, where we leave but we stay in the single market and have a form of customs union. It sorts out the Northern Irish border, protects jobs, and reflects the mandate, because 5248 is a mandate to move house but stay in the same neighbourhood. So I have deep reservations about having another referendum for two reasons. One, I think it's up to Parliament to sort this out. That's what MPs are there for. We're there to resolve these complex issues. And the other is, nobody from the second referendum campaign has ever clarified what the question on the ballot paper should be. Is it Remain versus no deal? Is it Remain versus Theresa May's deal if she manages to get one through? It's deeply unclear and uncertain. I think we need to find a solution to this, leave the European Union, but do so in a way that does not wreck the British economy.
The Work and Pension Secretary Amber Rudd has warned that if no deal is not taken off the table, as it were, we could see dozens of ministers resigning from the government. Is that your understanding? Do you think that's a real prospect?
Yes, it is, absolutely. I think there are a number of pragmatic, sensible, mainstream Conservative members of Parliament who are deeply, deeply uncomfortable with the idea of leaving with no deal, and I think we would see a large number of ministerial resignations. If the Prime Minister carries on just trying to run down the clock, bully and intimidate Parliament, she seems to be doubling down on reaching out to the European Research Group, the kind of hard Brexiteers, and the DUP. That is the wrong way to go in my view, because what she should be doing is looking to build a consensus. The way to do that is to soften her red lines and leave on the basis of a Norway-type deal. There is definitely a cross-party parliamentary majority for that kind of deal.
Stephen Kinnock in Westminster, thank you very much indeed.